I ended up getting pregnant with Henry's child. I'll be taking the house and the car, just so you know. Out of the blue, Molly announced she was pregnant. And the father is Henry, of all people. I kind of saw it coming. I had thought that something like this might happen someday, but still, when faced with it, I find myself at a loss for words. What used to be a joyful dinner table has now turned into this. When did it all go wrong? Before me, Henry and Molly were laughing with their mouths wide open. Both of them seemed desperate to kick me out of the house. Well, I have plans of my own. Fine, here's the divorce papers. I laid the filled-out divorce papers in front of Henry. Henry and Molly looked surprised for a moment but quickly understood the situation and started to celebrate. This means we can. Yeah, exactly. They think they can enjoy this moment. I'll make sure they regret taking me for granted. With determination, I continued with what would be my last meal in this house. My name is Kelly. I'm a 27-year-old working part-time at a bookstore. I've been living a happy life with my husband, Henry. I met Henry when I was working at an IT company before. He joined the company as my subordinate. My first impression of Henry was that of a very polite and nice young man. At the same time, it made me want to work harder. Let's start with this task today. All right. Henry quickly learned anything I taught him, making him a rewarding person to teach. He not only managed tasks I initially struggled with without any problems, but also acted with consideration towards others. I was a little jealous of him, as he was so different from how I used to be. But, seeing Henry's sincerity up close, any feelings of jealousy gradually faded away. Henry, I really appreciate how hard you work all the time. I'm relying on you moving forward as well. Yes. But all of this is thanks to you, Kelly. I'm really grateful for everything. It's true that I rely on Henry. I never hid this fact and made sure to express my gratitude actively. However, Henry never boasted about it, always thanking me and acknowledging my help with his work. Watching him, I couldn't help but think what a good person he is. Whenever I praised him, Henry always responded with a pleased smile. A year after we started working together, Henry suddenly asked me out. Hey, Kelly, would you like to go out for dinner with me sometime? Dinner? Are you sure it's not just to discuss work? No, it's not about work. I just genuinely want to have dinner with you. Really? I never imagined Henry would ask me out for a meal. I was a bit surprised, but delighted at the prospect of dining with him. Thank you. I'm so happy. When do you want to go? Thank you. Let's see. A few days later. After work, we went to a pub near our office. We took our seats and relaxed for a moment. Henry seemed a bit more nervous than usual. Are you okay? Yes, I'm just a bit nervous, sorry. It was me who asked you out, after all. Saying this, Henry gave a troubled smile. Seeing his smile, I couldn't help but find it adorable. An hour later. After having a few drinks, the tension had eased. We talked about work and our personal lives, having conversations we normally couldn't. 2 hours after we sat down, we left the pub. The outdoor air seemed to sober Henry up, returning him to his usual self. Sorry, I got a bit drunk. Did I say anything weird? No, everything was fine. Hearing my words, Henry visibly relaxed. Watching him, it seems he might be a bit of a lightweight when it comes to alcohol. It's quite charming, really. As I was mulling over this, Henry looked straight at me and asked, Hey, would you like to go out for dinner with me again? There was no way I could refuse an invitation from Henry. Of course. And so, we started to have dinner together regularly. Eventually, our relationship evolved from being just colleagues to becoming lovers. Even after we started dating, Henry remained earnest and kind. He continued to excel at his job and became someone whom other employees relied upon. I can't count how many times I've been grateful that Henry was my subordinate. Then, after 2 years, Henry and I decided to get married. Kelly, would you marry me? Henry asked, his voice shaking with emotion. There was no reason for me to say no. Yes. To think I'd get to marry such a wonderful man. How lucky am I? Just imagining our future life together makes me smile. However, this euphoria was short-lived. Soon after, I found myself caught up in an unexpected and troublesome situation. Following our marriage, I quit my job to become a full-time homemaker. We lived in a beautiful apartment, sharing meals together. On Henry's days off, we'd go shopping at the nearby mall or take short trips for sightseeing. This life was exactly what I had envisioned. I never thought it would become reality. Hey, I'm off tomorrow. Is there anywhere you'd like to go? Could you take me to the supermarket nearby? Sure. Despite being tired from work, Henry would help out with household chores on his days off and after coming home. It would be a different story if we were both working, but since I've become a full-time homemaker, it felt wrong to have him help. You must be tired from work, let me take care of the chores. You rest. No, I want to help. I've told him several times that I wanted him to rest, but Henry insists on helping around the house. Eventually, I accepted it and we began doing chores together. As we got used to married life, I started working part-time at a nearby bookstore. I've always loved books, and customer service wasn't a burden for me. The staff was all very kind, making it the perfect workplace for me. Now that I had started working, I thought it'd be great if we could save up for a trip with Henry. Just as I was daydreaming about this while working one day, an event occurred that would drastically change our lives. After finishing my shift and doing some grocery shopping, I headed home. It was past 6 p.m. Henry probably hadn't returned home yet. With that thought, I leisurely made my way back. I'm exhausted. As soon as I entered the house in my usual manner, I felt something was off. But I quickly discovered what it was. I heard some unfamiliar voices. Who could be? I picked up the bag filled with groceries and cautiously proceeded to the living room. Gently opening the door, I saw Henry and an unknown woman sitting cozily on the sofa. What? I couldn't help but let out a loud exclamation. Who was this woman? Could Henry be cheating? My mind raced with various thoughts, and I began to panic. However, Henry quickly came over to me and introduced the woman. Sorry. Didn't mean to startle you. Well, this is Molly, my childhood friend. Sorry for the surprise. Childhood friend. Yeah. We've known each other since before kindergarten. The reason Molly had come to our house. She came over for dinner, it turns out. Apparently, Molly recently moved to this area. When she told Henry, he invited her over for a meal at our place. Initially, Molly declined, but after catching up and wanting to see Henry, she eventually accepted his invitation. Oh, I see. So, could you make dinner for 3? I don't mind, but I didn't buy enough groceries. I wonder if it'll be enough. I'm sorry. It's because I came over unexpectedly, isn't it? Oh, don't worry about it. It's fine. Hearing why Molly was here, I honestly thought Henry was being rather selfish. A heads up would have prevented all this frustration. Yet, it didn't feel right to send Molly away now. But the thought of going shopping again was bothersome. I rummaged through the kitchen drawers and fridge, trying to scrape together enough for 3. Fortunately, we had some leftover ingredients, so I managed to prepare a meal for 3. While I was cooking, Henry and Molly seemed lost in their own world on the sofa. I could hear them catching up and talking about why Molly moved. Though I was initially annoyed with Henry's actions, those feelings faded over time. If they're happy, that's all that matters, I guess. Dinner's ready, I announced after setting the table. But they were so engrossed in their conversation, they didn't notice. Hey, guys! Oh, sorry. Henry finally noticed after I called out a few times. He took Molly by the hand and led her to the dining table. Molly didn't seem to mind being led by the hand. Watching them, I felt a bit annoyed again. Was that really necessary? But I chose not to say anything. Wow, this looks delicious. Right? Molly complimented the meal, and Henry looked proud. Molly quickly finished her meal. A few minutes later, as Henry and I were about to clean up, Molly came over. Can I help with anything? Oh, no need. Don't worry about it. But I insisted on coming over unexpectedly. Well, if you insist, could you help with the dishes? I thought I'd get other chores done while she helped. Glancing at Molly's hands, I noticed her uncertain grasp on the task. She seemed inexperienced, making me instinctively offer help. Are you okay? Yes. I'm fine, she said with a smile and went back to washing. Well, stopping her now seemed wrong. So I let her continue and went back to my chores. Molly started coming over more frequently after that. Initially, I wasn't thrilled about my husband bringing a female childhood friend home, but as we shared meals, I began to understand more about her, and my displeasure faded. Molly started helping out with meals and chores almost every time she visited. Her skills in housework noticeably improved, which was pleasing to see, considering we're not much different in age. We had become good friends. Maybe this kind of life isn't so bad. One day, I noticed something odd about Molly. Molly, could you help me clear these dishes? I tried to engage her in cleanup, but her usual smile was absent. I'm a bit tired today. Could you please do it? Oh, you're tired? All right, I responded as she turned back to the TV. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine, she assured, with Henry still by her side. Since Molly started visiting, the two of them enjoyed daily, friendly conversations and meals. Seeing them get along so well, given their childhood friendship, I never felt the need to intervene. Molly must be busy with work, I thought, as I began cleaning up by myself. But then, the next time and the time after that, Molly didn't offer to help at all. In fact, it seemed like her attitude had gotten worse. Lately, Kelly's cooking's been kind of meh, hasn't it? Yeah, it's not really that good. It used to be better. They said this right in front of me without any remorse. What? Shoot. Did Kelly take that harder than we thought? But, I mean, it's true though. They said, and then started laughing loudly. This was the first time someone had directly criticized my cooking, and I felt more sad than angry. From that day on, Molly and Henry started making derogatory remarks about me. Molly kept coming over for meals, but, of course, stopped helping with any preparation or cleanup. It was as if Molly's true colors were starting to show. Kelly kind of has a bland vibe, doesn't she? Why'd you marry her? Indeed. I've forgotten. Well, I don't have a shred of affection for her now anyway. That's terrible. Whenever I stepped away for a bit, they'd inevitably start bad-mouthing me. At first, it hurt, but then I got used to it. Is there anything sadder than getting used to being bad-mouthed? But, of course, I wasn't going to stay silent forever. If you dislike me that much, then maybe you shouldn't come over anymore, I told Molly clearly. They were surprised since I usually just went along with whatever they said. They froze for a moment at my words, but it was only for a moment. What, all of a sudden? It's all just jokes, obviously. Yeah. Just joking. Really, thank you for everything, Kelly. They said, their words dripping with sarcasm. I find that hard to believe. No, really, it's true. Right, Molly? Yeah. After all, we're always imposing on you. They continued, their insincerity evident. No matter how many times I addressed it, their attitudes never changed. I even considered divorce. But then there was Henry's persuasion, the preparations for divorce, and whether the divorce talks would progress at all. When it came down to it, various obstacles made it difficult to take that first step. To Henry and Molly, I must have seemed like a very convenient woman. As I stopped admonishing them, they only became more brazen. Hey, I'm going out with Molly today. Just the two of you? Yeah. So? I mean, even if you're childhood friends, you're married. I'm not really comfortable with that. It's fine because we're just friends. Nothing weird about it. Oh, I'll bring you back a souvenir. What do you want? No matter how much I asked them not to go out alone together, Henry wouldn't listen, dismissing my concerns with promises of souvenirs and assurances that nothing inappropriate would happen because they were just friends. I don't care about souvenirs. I want you to stop going out alone together. When I got angry, Henry's demeanor suddenly changed. I told you, we're not doing anything wrong. What's your problem? This is unbelievable. Fine, I won't come home tonight. What? Wait a minute. Henry stormed out and didn't come home that day. He probably stayed at Molly's. Seeing Henry prioritize Molly over me made my feelings for him grow colder. When did Henry change so much? Or perhaps he was just showing his true self. The more I thought about it, the more I felt deceived and utterly miserable. Then one day, out of the blue, Henry said something unexpected. Hey, how about we start thinking about having kids? Kids? Yeah. Life's been settling down, after all. But I couldn't agree. I don't think it's possible anymore. Why? We're still young enough, and we have the money. It's a matter of the heart. I can't see it working out when you always prioritize Molly over everything else. Wanting kids is one thing, but raising them is another. I couldn't imagine having and raising children with someone who would always put Molly first, no matter what. But my resistance seemed to annoy him. What? You think you have the right to refuse? I'm saying I want a child with you. That's exactly the problem. Would you do the same to our child? Leave all the childcare to me while you go off to Molly? Henry raised his voice even more, hitting the nail on the head. Shut up. Whatever I do, it's none of your business. If we take his words at face value, it means he intended to leave all the childcare responsibilities to me even if we had a child. That just reinforced my decision not to have children with him. Eventually, my continuous refusal seemed to make Henry give up on the idea of having kids. I thought he finally understood. But my assumption was about to be proven drastically wrong. A few months later, as usual, Molly came over for dinner. I was reluctant, but not serving dinner would only lead to more trouble. They kept criticizing my cooking as always. I thought if they didn't like it, they shouldn't come over. But I guessed they would finish everything despite their complaints. That thought was interrupted when Molly suddenly put down her chopsticks with a smile. Hey, can I say it? Yeah, go ahead. Say what? I was tense, wondering what she was about to say. Then, Molly dropped a bombshell. I'm pregnant with Henry's child. The infertile one should get a divorce and leave. I'll take the house and the car. I couldn't believe my ears. But at the same time, a feeling of I knew it emerged. Seeing them together daily, I could somehow accept it. I had thought something like this might happen someday, but still, being faced with it, I was at a loss for words. And to be called infertile. Henry must have told Molly something to that effect since I refused to have children with him. After that, Henry and Molly only had unbelievable things to say to me. Now that they were having a child, I had become an inconvenience. Well, I had my own plans. Fine, here's the divorce papers. I pulled out the pre-filled divorce papers I had stored in a drawer. I had prepared them when divorce had crossed my mind. Never thought I'd actually use them. But this seemed like a good opportunity. Feeling no need to hold Henry back, I told them to sign the papers. Initially, they were confused, but gradually smiles spread across their faces. This means we can. Yeah, exactly. Henry casually grabbed a pen nearby and signed his part. Here you go. This means we're divorced. Good luck to you both. They must be imagining their future life together. But such thoughts could only occupy my mind for so long. I began preparing to leave the house, thinking about what I needed to do next. I definitely need to take this with me. I pulled out a notebook hidden at the back of my desk. It was a diary where I had written about my daily life, work, and the things Henry and Molly did. It was just a hobby, but who knew it might come in handy. I flipped through it to make sure it was all there, then tucked it into my bag. Luckily, I found a weekly apartment I could move into right away, so I left the day after Molly told me about her pregnancy. Finally leaving, huh? Hurry up and leave. Molly had stayed over after dinner, probably planning to live in this house from now on. I wondered what would happen to her previous residence, but realized it was a pointless thought. All right, you two be happy together. With that, I left the house. I immediately started looking for a new place to live. I found a new apartment quickly and started preparing to move in. But finding a lawyer wasn't so easy. I feared Henry and Molly might get away with everything. Letting them get away without doing anything would be too regrettable. But if something can't be found, there's nothing that can be done about it. It was devastating to think about it. But then, I came across a lawyer named Carlos. Something about him made me think he might be able to help. I dialed his number and was greeted by a friendly male voice. Then, I was immediately greeted by a friendly male voice. We arranged a meeting and ended the call. Somehow, I felt he could make a difference. This intuition would soon prove to be correct. Carlos listened to my story with great empathy. Having not confided in anyone until now, the kindness felt deeply moving. Clearly, Carlos was the only choice. I decided to rely on Carlos Brown. Afterward, to arrange a discussion about compensation, I asked him to prepare a formal notice for Henry and Molly, addressed to Henry West and Molly Brown. Carlos seemed to somehow know the two. Do you know them? Well, Molly is actually my sister. Sister! I had noticed they shared the same last name, but never imagined they were siblings. That meant it made sense that he knew Henry, who was a childhood friend. Is it okay to take action against your sister? Yes, of course. She's the one who did wrong, so she needs to properly reflect on her actions, Carlos said with a troubled smile. 2 weeks after receiving Molly's pregnancy news, I had moved into my new place and was taking a moment to breathe when my phone rang. It was from Henry, probably about the formal notice arriving. I figured he would say something like, "What's this about?" or "We're already divorced, so don't bother me." Feeling it was a hassle, I didn't answer. A few seconds later, the call ended. But then it rang again immediately. Ignoring it only led to more calls, so I decided to pick up. Hello? Hey! What's this about a formal notice? Are you kidding me? Why are you calling repeatedly? It's annoying. What? Annoying? You started this with your weird actions. Send me this notice after we're divorced, telling me not to get involved. I couldn't help but laugh at the predictability of his response. What are you laughing at? I just find it amusing. Make sure you read what's in the notice carefully. Why? You can run, but I'll find you no matter what. You two need to seriously reflect on your actions. Reflect? Weren't you okay with it? You even congratulated us when Molly said she was pregnant. What? Did you not understand that it was just politeness? If I made a fuss, it would just cause trouble. You two get angry too quickly to have a rational conversation. What did you say? Henry was furious on the other end of the line, but I wasn't scared since it was just a phone call. Well, that's it. Make sure you don't ignore the notice. I emphasized this point and then hung up. The calls stopped after a few more attempts. 2 weeks later, the day to resolve everything arrived. I had warned them not to ignore the notice, but would they really come? I felt slightly anxious, but just over 5 minutes past the appointed time. The door opened. Henry and Molly entered the room with tense expressions. Carlos, sitting next to me, glared at them. Glad you two could make it. Why is my brother here? Kelly, did you do this on purpose? Finding my brother to represent you is just in bad taste. It was purely coincidental that I asked Carlos for help. And I didn't even know he was your brother. Molly fell silent at my rebuttal. So, what's this about? Sending weird documents. Kelly and I are divorced. We're strangers now. Indeed, strangers. But Kelly has been treated terribly by you too. For what? Whether they genuinely didn't understand or were playing dumb. Their arrogance was too much considering their position. For the damages. What are you talking about? Are you saying it didn't happen? Then why is Molly pregnant? Carlos interjected as Henry tried to obscure the issue. That happened after we divorced. And how do you even know about that? I heard it from Kelly. Why do you keep lying? Initially, the divorce happened because Molly got pregnant, right? And since the pregnancy was discovered before the divorce, it's clear you two were involved while still married to Kelly. If you continue to lie, we can always contact the hospital. Carlos's words carried a slight threat. But without going that far, the two would surely continue to lie. Those words likely came from knowing Henry and Molly for so long. But you know all this? Thanks to Kelly's diary, we know exactly what you two have been up to. A diary? Yes. Since you married Henry and Molly started coming over, all the things they did that bothered you. You wrote it all down. Hearing Carlos's words, Henry and Molly glared at me. But if they hadn't done what they did, none of this would have happened. I'm not troubled by their glare. What, am I the bad one here? Yes, you are. If you were more capable in cooking and cleaning, and more attractive, I wouldn't have had to turn to Molly. It's all your fault for being inadequate. Kelly lost to me. Despite the presence of a lawyer, Henry and Molly continued with their nonsensical talk. The pregnancy was the tipping point, but I realized it was good that I divorced Henry. Still, my mind couldn't fully grasp the situation. What are these two even saying? Do they truly believe they've done nothing wrong? The more I listened, the more confused I became. Then Carlos spoke up again. Hey! Enough already! What's with all this nonsense you've been saying? But. It's not about but. What do you mean she's not good at cleaning, not attractive? Saying Kelly lost to you, what kind of attitude is that? Truly disrespectful. It's the truth. What's wrong with saying that? The truth? Could you say that in front of Kelly's parents? In front of a judge? A judge? Why would a judge come into this? If you keep up this nonsense and don't pay the compensation, we'll end up in court. It's fine by me and Kelly, but you two will be at a disadvantage. The compensation could end up being much more than what's being asked now, plus you'll have court fees. If you think you have a chance of winning, I get why you'd resist, but continuing this way is frankly idiotic. Carlos, while angry, made sure to speak calmly to them. Plus, if it goes to court, it'll get out. You might have to leave your jobs. Is that what you want? Hearing the word court seemed to scare Henry and Molly. Their bravado vanished. Court? It'll get out at work? Yes. Even at my workplace? Of course. Realizing they had no way out. They both slumped, defeated. Then, after a pause, Henry spoke. Sorry, Kelly. We were wrong. Molly followed with her apology. Truly sorry. Are you reflecting? Yes, we are. Truly sorry. They both apologized again, slightly bowing their heads. Their words of apology were good to hear, but were they truly reflecting on what they did wrong? Do you really mean that? Yes, we do. Then let's conclude this with a compensation agreement. Right. Please read this document. Knowing they hadn't really reflected, I accepted their apology to end the conversation. I hadn't acted thoughtlessly. What? Compensation? Why? Why do we have to pay? Exactly what I wanted to see. They probably thought their apology would make everything okay. Thinking an apology was enough to end all this was naive. Why? What do you mean? We apologized. Why do we still have to? That's right. We're not paying any compensation. Their previously meek attitude disappeared, and their arrogance returned. Clearly, they hadn't reflected at all. Have you never heard that if apologies were enough, we wouldn't need police? Even if you apologize, some things can't be forgiven. What the victim, me, wants isn't an apology but compensation. Understand? Henry's expression changed suddenly. He realized I was serious about the compensation. But we don't have that kind of money. There's rent, car loans, and now a child on the way. We'll need even more money. That's not my problem. We're strangers now. Why should I, a stranger, worry about you? You need money because you're having a child? It's absurd to come to me with that after everything you've done. No way! Seeing I wouldn't budge, Henry's face turned pale. Really the worst. Why do you want to take our money so badly? I don't get it. Who's the worst here? Kelly hasn't done anything wrong. You harassed her, decided you wanted a child, and made one. And now you're saying this is Kelly's fault? Please, enough with the jokes. But, as I said before, continuing to throw tantrums will only lead you to court. If it goes to trial, you'll end up needing a significantly larger amount of money. Excuses won't work then. Carlos said, taking a moment before continuing. Moreover, continuing this way might lead to you losing social credibility. It could become neighborhood gossip or even reach your parents' ears. Are you okay with everyone knowing you were sued for an affair? I'd be mortified. Hearing Carlos's speech, Henry and Molly seemed to finally understand their situation. Did they want to maintain a good image? Perhaps they didn't want their misdeeds to be known by others. If you still want to argue after hearing all this. Sorry. Really sorry. We'll pay the demanded compensation. Just please, no court. We don't want to upset our parents. They were already causing enough distress. So, you'll pay quietly? Yes. We'll pay. So please, don't raise the amount. And what about you, Molly? I'll pay too. Properly. I'm sorry, I was out of line. Their apologies seemed hollow, but it was better they realized their actions sooner. They looked defeated on the couch. Agreeing to pay the compensation amount suggested. I also want to apologize. I'm really sorry for everything. No need. I quickly reassured him. Grateful for his help. If there's anything else, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much. After a brief chat with Carlos, I headed home. Feeling reassured by his reliable presence. Half a year after the divorce, I'm living comfortably alone in my new home. Continuing my part-time job at the bookstore, surrounded daily by things I love. After the confrontation with Henry and Molly, I don't know what became of them. Whether they stayed in that house, got married, or how they're managing with a child, I'm not sure. But honestly, their fate doesn't concern me. They must be managing somehow. I hope they're reflecting on how terrible their actions were, but since we'll never interact again, it doesn't really matter. From now on, I want to live for myself. Doing what I want and living life my way. I'm looking forward to what the future holds. Checking my schedule for tomorrow, I sip my favorite tea.